welcome to the show on 104.1 Riverwest Radio. My name is Kyle. Normally I have my co-host Christian by my side, but he is actually in the process of moving to sunny Los Angeles, California. So I will be doing today's interview solo. This is my first one-on-one interview on the show, so we'll see how it goes. I'm sure it's going to go great, obviously. I carry the show. No offense, Christian, but I'm praying for him to have a safe trip. I think he's actually in Kansas. He stayed overnight in Kansas City. He's driving down through Oklahoma. He's going to stay night in Amarillo, and then Santa Fe, and then L.A. by this next weekend. So safe travels. But before we begin today's show, the show is brought to you in part by Pete's Pub on the corner of Brady Street in Arlington. Pete's Pub offers daily food specials, daily drink specials, weekly trivia, and much more. More information available at petespubonbrady.com. So, today we have a very, very special guest. He founded Evolve Church back in 2018 and turned it into a 1,500-person congregation. He is the Milwaukee Bucks barber, and he is also the youngest team chaplain in NBA history. Ladies and gentlemen, Pastor Ken Locke.
Hey,
how you doing?
I'm doing good.
How'd you like that intro?
I like it, man. You know, Sal, you could have added a little more, but I'm joking.
Proud father of two, devoted husband.
Yeah,
those are good ones too.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for coming in. How are you doing today?
Man, I'm doing well, man. Thanks for having me.
No, thank you. Pleasure's all mine. So for starters, let me just run you through who we've had on the show so far. So we interviewed a Milwaukee YouTuber, the Milverine.
Yeah.
Bart Lundy, the newest head coach of the UW Panthers men's basketball team. A professional wrestler, a former reality TV star. Next week, we're interviewing the mayor of Milwaukee. So where would you put yourself on that list?
Mayor, and then, you know... Right.
I would say mayor, yeah. Yeah, and you've gotten the chance to meet the mayor a couple times, right?
Oh, he's a buddy of mine. He actually gave us our own day. Our church, back in January, is now called Evolve Church Day, January 25th.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And you were, so... For starters, so Evolve Church, you founded it in 2018.
Yep.
So why don't we just start with that? So how did that all come about?
Yeah, man. Before that, I was actually serving with my dad. My dad's a pastor. And, looked up in church one day, and I was like, everybody in here is old.
Yeah.
And I just felt like I had a passion for my generation. And so when we started Evolve Church, we coined the name Evolve because we were like, hey, the church has to be able to meet the times.
Right.
And how would I get people in my generation, which is Gen Z, millennials, how would we go to church? And if we were to go, what would we want? What would our experience be?
Right.
What would speak to us? And we started Evolve Church with that in mind, and had a team of about 8 people. We were praying every day, just trying to figure out what it could look like. Created this plan, and we planted it back in April of 2018. And we were blessed that, our very first Sunday, we had 500 people. And we just consistently grew ever since then.
What were your expectations, I guess, when you first started the church?
Man, I had no clue.
We were hoping for the best?
We were hoping for the best. It was it was me and my family. And we were like, dude, if we get like a solid 25, that's a great start.
Yeah.
Because if you're coming from 0, 25 people feels like a million.
For sure.
So we had 500 people our first service. I was pleasantly surprised, but also a bit nervous, because then I knew that they were going to come back the next week with an expectation.
Yeah, it's got to be good day in and day out, especially when you're building your brand.
Yeah, it is.
And so where do you hold service?
Right now we're inside of Vincent High School every Sunday. This is our last month. Next month we'll be in our campus finally that we've been building in construction with since last year, June. So about 14 months.
And what's the process to getting your own place, to do a place of worship? I guess how much work was it? How long of a plan was in place before?
I mean, it took us 3 years before we were finally able to purchase our location we have right now. And then it took us another, like I said, 14 months to retrofit it. And it takes a while because obviously when you're a new church, no banks don't trust you. So,
when you're like a new anything bank.
Yeah. Right. If you're a new business, if you're trying to start up and you're like, hey, I have this crazy idea, but I have no money. And they're like,
we hear this one before. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So they weren't trusting us. It took us a few years to build a relationship, to build our financial rapport, to show that we were not like a fly-by-night kind of company or organization, that we were here to stay. And then once we built that, we were finally able to purchase. And the retrofitting process is crazy because, working with the city, as anybody that's worked with this amazing city, if the mayor's listening, thank you so much. I love Milwaukee.
Me too. I love Milwaukee as well.
But the legality of it, of walking through and building a church, it can be difficult because a lot of times, your alder has to approve, your city has to approve. The church is a nonprofit organization. It's a religious institution. And so there could be a couple of
there's a lot of hurdles to jump through.
It is.
And you especially want to do everything by the book.
Yeah, you have to, right? The last thing you want to do as a church is start doing something illegal.
For sure. So did you you pitch the idea to banks? Yeah. And did you get turned down a couple of times?
Absolutely. I got turned down a bunch of times. One time I was turned down, I was angry because there was a banker in Racine who I reached out to, and he gave me this promise. He's like, dude, drive up, bring your financials. I've already looked over some stuff. I'm guaranteeing you we'll be good. I drove 50 minutes there, and I could just tell by, the way the conversation was going, the promise he gave me on the phone wasn't going to happen. And so we were looking to buy a $3 million building, and he was like, can you guys put down 60 to 70%?
That's a lot.
And I'm like, so why not just tell me to go buy it cash? Because if you put down 70%,
that's crazy.
I might as well just leave and go and raise the capital, And so, it's like, to me, I feel
you had to bite your tongue a little bit.
Oh, it's worse than just telling me no. I would have been better off you just saying no.
Like on the phone, right?
Yeah, like, I can't do it. Sorry, it's too risky. I understand. As a bank, they have legitimate risks that they have to mitigate, right?
Yeah.
And so I understand it, but to have me drive is like as a waste. So I've gotten turned down several times,
But all it takes is that one yes, right?
Literally all it takes is one yes. And the one yes you get, you forget about the times you were turned down.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, we're in this process right now, and I'm like, I forget, until you just asked me right now, I forget the feeling that I had walking out of there.
Yeah.
Right? And trying to hold, my kids are with me. So like, hey, Dad,
how are you doing? And
I'm like, I'm good.
You got to still be the dad. You still got to be their dad, but in your head, you're probably stewing. Oh, super angry.
Oh, so angry. And to my kids, I'm a superhero. So, nothing gets me mad. I'm always even keel, so I had to try to maintain that image.
Yeah.
At the time I wanted to flip over tables like Jesus did.
Well, congratulations on getting it. Obviously, it took a lot of work, and I'm sure it was just a matter of building up the church and more people buying into what you were doing, and then it's just equipping yourself with that ammo to be able to go and, get the loan, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And we had I think enough pastors don't talk about it. I have an amazing team. You know what I mean? I have some amazing people with very specific skill sets that were able to help me out. You know what I mean? When it came to the financial process,
kind of like Liam Neeson, and
taking
a very particular set of skills.
Yeah, very particular. And I've acquired over a period of time the Liam Neeson, right? And so. Honestly, man, I'm a firm believer, man, you go as far as your support team.
Absolutely.
So if you have a great support system, man, you can make it much further than what you could on your own.
Right, for sure. And then going back, so you're from Milwaukee originally.
Born and raised.
So how old are you?
I'm 33.
I'm 33 as well. Same age as Jesus.
Come
both
on,
of us.
man.
There we go.
He died at this age, so hopefully that doesn't come soon.
I plan on living a little bit longer. At least. So where in the city did you grow up?
2 places. So I lived on 35th and Capitol and 27th and Berline. So I was raised in what is called the ghetto.
Yeah. And what was that like? So I grew up in northern Wisconsin.
Yeah.
I mean, we had redneck issues, but I mean, honestly, for me, I went to school in UW-Eau Claire, which is a state school in western Wisconsin. Then I moved to Madison, and I moved to Milwaukee. And obviously, Milwaukee's a lot different than the rest of the state. So I guess what was it like growing up in the thick of it?
Oh man, crazy. Oh man, I've can't tell you how many times I've been jumped, how many fights. It was one point in time, I think for 3 years I fought every day. Right? So I'm well versed. You know what I mean?
Was it something you did, or was that just the way it was?
Just the way it was. Some of it was me. I was raised so. Most people try to blame the environment. Totally, I can't do that. Some of it legitimately was me. I was raised in a huge family. It was 12 kids. I have 10 sisters, 1 brother.
Wow.
Right? So both parents, 10 kids, 10 sisters, 1 brother.
Is that your phone?
It wasn't me, guys. It wasn't me.
So 10. So you had how many siblings?
Yeah, 10 sisters, 1 brother. So it's 12 of us and both of my parents. So 14 people in a 2-bedroom household. Right.
How was the sleeping arrangement?
I slept on the floor until I was a teenager. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's 2 bathrooms. Imagine trying to take a shower in a house with 10 women. It's not going to happen.
I have a hard time with just my girlfriend trying to get the bathroom sometimes.
You know what I mean? Every time I got to the bathroom, it was cold water. So I've been taking cold showers way before puberty.
You were doing it before it was cool, before it was a thing.
Literally, yeah. So being raised in that, and you're raised in that kind of environment, man, you're raised in poverty, you're raised in struggle. It does leave you with a certain level of aggression.
Oh,
right?
absolutely.
You know, and then like not being able to afford the nice shoes, the nice clothes. And if I was ever teased in school, I just fought my way out.
Right.
You know, that's just the way that, you know, that's the way I knew how to win. I could win combat.
Yeah. And the way people are, like bullies or whatever, I mean, you got to stand your ground essentially, because if people that sense weakness, they're going to continue to attack.
They're going to exploit it.
Yeah,
you know
what they view as weakness.
Absolutely.
Kindness. Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, you know that that's in business, that's in life,
yeah,
that's in culture. You know, is the killer be killed is a very uncomfortable saying, but it's very, very real. And what I mean by that, not in a violent way, but it is you have to be willing to be on the attack.
Yeah.
In life, like even if it's your dream, if it's your purpose, your passion, like it's not, nobody's going to give it to you.
Right. And there's ways to go about that. In the right way.
Absolutely. Yeah, it has to be the right way. You know what I mean? Yeah, I'm a pastor, so I can't tell you to do it the wrong way. But it has to be in the right way. But I do think that, like, you know, enough people don't take life with a certain level of good aggression. When I say aggression, with certain level of good aggression, like, hey, take responsibility and accountability, and realize that your life is not going to go in any direction you're not willing to steer it.
And you only get one.
You only get one. You only get
those
one.
Are things
YOLO.
As I've gotten older. I mean, I haven't figured out everything yet at 33, but
neither of us.
I think there was a period it started to click, and my girlfriend honestly helped starting the process of taking life more seriously. And be like, you gotta, you know, you're gonna get what you put in.
Yeah, man, absolutely. Women usually do mature sooner than men. Studies show that women fully mature at 28, men fully mature at 41. 41. So we still got time.
All right, that's good.
But they kind of help nudge us to mature faster. So me having 10 sisters helped me mature a little bit sooner. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and your father was a pastor.
He still is in Milwaukee.
He still is.
Yes.
And what church was that?
It's called Open Door. Long name.
Okay.
Open Door Christian Worship Center.
And what was it like being the son of a pastor?
Oh man, terrible.
It was even worse.
It's worse only because there's this expectation to be perfect. You know what I mean? Like I think pastors' kids aren't afforded the luxury of being human.
I bet.
You know, so it's like, you know.
And it obviously didn't prevent people from messing with you.
Oh, it doesn't. It doesn't stop anybody from doing anything. As a matter of fact, they think they're supposed to mess with you and then you're not doing anything because what would Jesus do? Right? So it's like, you know, and I'm like, I'm not Jesus. You know, I'm trying to be like him.
Right.
And I struggled every day.
Absolutely.
That's why I talk about him so much and not me, because he's perfect and I'm not. But yeah, it was tough. You deal with your challenges. My dad and my mom did the best that they could with extremely difficult situations. If you have 12 kids,
that's crazy.
It is literally difficult to. I mean, imagine remembering birthdays. Like
I have a hard time with that. I know my girlfriends, I know my moms, I know a couple friends, but yeah, it's hard remembering all that.
You have 12 kids. Like,
and that was before like smartphones that could remind you.
Yeah. Now your iPhone will alert you. I think there's a birthday today.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
Which is very helpful. Yeah, technology isn't all bad. So what high school did you go to?
James Madison High School.
Okay.
They changed it to James Madison Academic Campus, which I don't like.
Okay.
But it's James Madison High School at that time, yeah.
And then after school, you went to college somewhere locally, right?
I went to Tennessee State first.
Oh, Tennessee State.
Yeah, I went to Tennessee State, which was fun. It was an absolute party school, and that is when I lived nothing like a Christian.
Yeah,
I tell everybody that was my prodigal son moment.
Right. Were you I guess were your parents pretty strict growing up?
Pretty.
Very strict.
They were extremely strict. We went to church 5 days a week.
Wow.
Yeah.
Even if you had some like black eye from getting into a fight earlier.
I mean anything. Like, you know what I mean? You don't.
Was it he was preaching 5 days a week?
Yeah. Well, he wasn't preaching at this time, because at this time he was a senior pastor. He was only an associate pastor, an elder there.
Okay.
But they had 3 main services. They had 4 main services, forgive me, every week, and then we had rehearsals. So we was there 5 times a week.
Wow.
And so like
That's a lot. That's a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot. So I would have never thought in a million years I would have been a pastor. This is the funniest part about it. When people look at me like, you don't look like a pastor, and I'm like, and I don't feel like one sometimes, because I never thought that I would be a pastor. I grew up in church. It was so much for me, and I'm like, man, these rules are ridiculous. The expectations are egregious. I would just rather believe in God and live my life.
Right.
And
what like division of Christianity were you raised in?
It's called apostolic.
Apostolic.
So if you look up apostolic, it's like the strictest sect of religion. I mean, it's like women have to wear skirts. They can't wear pants.
Oh boy.
Like men, you can't like grow your hair or wear an earring.
Uh-huh.
You have to like You know, you have to wear a suit
So
every
crazy
day.
rules.
You know?
Yeah, I was raised Lutheran, which I feel like was pretty laid back. It was either in my small town, everyone was either Lutheran or Catholic, and all my friends that were Catholic, they had like way more work growing up than I did. Like doing confession and the expectations. So I was kind of happy.
For sure.
So you went to Tennessee State first. What'd you go to school for down there originally?
Psychology.
Okay.
Yeah, it was psychology. So I love the brain. I still am a brainy person to my core. I've always been fascinated with why brains process information the way that they do. So how you can send 10 people through the exact same culture and climate and all 10 come out with different experiences. Right? And like it really is all because your brain is a filter.
So it's like nature versus nurture?
Yeah, literally, right? You know, so
is that if you weren't a pastor, do you think would be the line of work you'd be in, like
hands
psychology?
down. Oh yeah, I absolutely. I would definitely be a psychologist, not psychiatrist. I don't like the medicine part as much, even though I respect it. I appreciate it. It's not my cup of tea. But it would be therapist or psychologist because it is still my passion. I still read books on psychology to this day.
And you are a therapist.
Yeah,
right? You're a shoulder to lean on for tons of people in a lot of different ways.
Literally.
And I think there's definitely, I think it's gotten better, the stigma of like psychology.
Yeah, mental health is a big thing now,
Yeah.
right? I mean, even government resources, they're starting to release millions upon millions of dollars for people who step into that work.
Right.
And I do so much advocacy work in the mental health space. I just did
it's hard to talk to, just being able to talk to people is such a major plus. I mean, I've had bouts of like going into therapy and I've talked and just learning how to open up. I mean, it opens doors like personally, professionally, just being able to be like present and being able to talk through how you're feeling. But there is a stigma, like, you know, some people are afraid of opening up, being vulnerable. It is tough.
Yeah, I mean, especially going to see a therapist. I mean, you were taught terms like you're going to see a shrink.
Yeah.
Like, you know, what's wrong with your brain? Like, what's wrong with you?
And it's a waste of money unless you're actually serious about it because you get in what you like put into it. Right?
Absolutely, you get out what you put into it. So if you don't go in open, then most of the work is going to be them trying to open you up, which is a waste of your time.
How many more sessions, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So then after Tennessee State, so then I think I was creeping on your LinkedIn page a little earlier. So I think did you go do Bible studies at a private college in the area?
Yep, I did. I did finish my degree in theology and biblical studies. That's when I started to realize I was going to go into ministry.
Was there a moment where you're like, this is what I'm going to do? Were you kind of just tired of the way you were living?
Yeah, it was a moment. So I had a really, really tough 2014. 2014, I had become critically ill. The doctors had given me 48 hours to live, actually.
Well, can I ask, what was the health scare?
Yeah. So I actually had an infection in my brain fluids and in my spinal fluids.
Wow. What caused it?
They don't know. Legitimately, like when I tell you they don't know, they say most of the time it comes from it is the same viral strain of meningococcal meningitis which you usually get when you're traveling, but I wasn't traveling at that time.
So was it literally you just woke up one day feeling?
Well, I woke up with a really bad headache, and I don't really get headaches. So I'm like, I'm probably go to the Walgreens and I'll get some migraine medicine. And I went and I asked the pharmaceutical rep or the physician there, and they're like, "Wait, we're going to give you the strongest. This is what we have. If this doesn't work, you probably should go to the hospital because this is the strongest milligram you can get over the counter."
Right.
So I took it, went home, took a nap. I woke up, my head was hurting worse than what it was before I went to sleep. And so I asked somebody to take me to the hospital. As I was driving to the hospital, I could feel like every bump in the road. And I was like, okay, I think this is actually a bad space. I get there, they draw my blood work. 30 minutes later, 3 doctors come in with all white quarantine suits on. And tell my son that he has to get out of the room. He was 2 years old. My wife at the time was there. They both go out the room. They run more tests. 2 hours later, they come back like, you know, you have a rare viral strand, bacterial strand in your brain and in your spinal fluids, and 99% of the time, your life expectancy is 48 hours. That's how fast it's shutting down your organs in your brain.
Were you like fully present at this point? Were you like delirious?
I remember being half and half. I remember them telling me that 48 hours to live, I became fully present. We like, oh, okay. All right. You know, and so, you know, it was really, really funny though. Cause you know, they asked me, like, we got to ask you a series of questions. And it was like, do you mind asking if your wife was still in the room? Because at this time I was married. And I'm like, yeah, you know, sure. You know, they're like, are you sure you want her to stay? And I'm like, yeah. They're like, okay. All right. Well, you know, have you slept with anyone outside your wife in the last 5 years? And I'm like, hey, you should step out. I'm joking. I made a joke even while I was sick. But
I did make that bad. The brain was. I mean, the brain's the last thing to go. Obviously,
it is. You know, but then after that, it did progress really fast. To the point where I couldn't take down food, and then it was harder for me to walk and move. So it literally shuts you down like really fast. But I made it out of that, and my promise to myself or to God in that moment was. It was the second day when I felt my worst. I was like, man, you know what, God? Like, this is a test of my faith. I believe that if you spare my life, that I will use my life to serve you in whatever way and capacity that looks like. And I made it out. I was one of the 1%ers that made it out of not dying from that illness. So
what's it like waking up that first day and being like, man, I was this close?
Dude, it's weird because your body's so sore, you still feel close.
Yeah.
So it's like
the worst is over.
Yeah, you know, you're still sore, and it was hard for me to see like sunlight or any bright light.
Yeah.
But I was just happy to be alive. So I was grateful just to know that I had made it through. You know, and I made it through 48 hours. So I was good.
So this was 2014?
Yep.
So you were a couple years out of school, and that's when you realized kind of what your calling was?
It was.
Did you feel like it was a sign that you need to be doing something?
I feel like it was a sign for sure. Because, you know, my dad always told me that I would be a minister and pastor and all that.
Like,
but,
right.
Yeah.
Did he tell that to all of his kids or just you?
Well, to me specifically, him and my mom always felt like, hey, you're a leader, bona fide. And I always tried to use my leadership skills in other ways. Mm-hmm. It's like you would use your leadership skills for everything but church. And, you know, which I was at that time. I mean, I was leading community centers. I started my own business, everything. Like I was using the skill sets, but I just wasn't using it for Christ. So that was my opportunity to use my God-given ability for a spiritual cause.
And you owned and operated your own barber shop. I think it's called Levels.
Yeah, Levels Hair Studio. Yeah,
I saw. So as of was it May of this year or May of last year, you stepped away?
May of last year, man. I officially retired and stepped away full time from. Working in my shop, I still own it, but working in
is it still open?
Yep. So it's still open. I still have 4 barbers, 2 stylists there, and I still cut hair for the Bucks, but I leave the shop for my workers.
Yeah, and when did you become the official barber of the Milwaukee Bucks? Or
2015.
2015. So how did that all happen?
Man, it's a funny story. So I was actually I received a text message from a guy named Jared Dudley who just got traded to the Bucks at the time.
Yep.
And he texted me. He's like, "Hey, yo, my name is Jared Dudley, man. I'm trying to get cut." And I'm thinking it's a joke because I don't know how he had my name. I got my number. So
how'd he find you?
Yeah, and he was like, a guy used to cut named Deontay Garrett. He played basketball for Vincent. He made it to the NBA for 4 years, and he used to play for the Phoenix Suns with Jared Dudley. And so Jared Dudley knew he was from Milwaukee, and he was like, yo, I came to Milwaukee, I got a bad haircut. Do you know any good barbers? And so he gave him my number and name.
Right.
So I went and cut Jared Dudley. Jared Dudley went to practice the next day, and they were like, dude, we love your haircut. Who cut you? He's like, man, this is a new barber named Ken. So OJ Mayo calls me down there.
Oh, OJ Mayo.
So I cut OJ Mayo and Kendall Marshall. While cutting Kendall Marshall, Jabari Parker walks in.
Yeah.
So I cut Jabari Parker. Jabari Parker calls me back the next week. Well, I'm cutting Jabari Parker the next time. Giannis walks in. And at this time, Jabari was the star. Giannis wasn't. So I actually made Giannis wait. You know, he was like 19.
Was that his rookie year?
His second. Yeah. So he was like, he's 6'9" at this time, scrawny. You know what I mean? And I'm like, I made him wait.
Do you have to lower the chair really low?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, and I'm still cutting above my shoulder. Yeah, yeah, and I ended up cutting Giannis. And at the end of that year, the team came to me like, "Hey, you already cut everybody's hair. They all trust you. Would you want to be the team barber?" And I'm like, I don't know any barber that would say no to this.
No, that's hard. Were you really nervous that progressively more and more nervous as more players?
Yeah, I think I was more nervous at the beginning. As more and more players trusted me, it was kind of like, yeah, I'm approved. I'm stamped.
Yeah.
But at the beginning, where one time I had to cut Jabari Parker, and they needed me to cut him while he was getting ready to do an interview, and then they came up with this beautiful idea. Well, why don't we just do the interview while he's getting a haircut? So there's like 3 professional cameras, high beam lights.
It's easy for him to do the interview, but what about you? Like, you have a lot of things to concentrate on.
Literally, so I'm trying to cut his hair and be aware of where camera placement and light placement is. So I mean that time I was nervous.
That's high pressure.
Yeah, and I literally
that's like your game 7.
Yeah, no, for sure. I felt in my arms and my hands I had to make sure I was steady because I kind of felt like my hands were trying to shake a little bit.
I bet.
But it was just a lot of people around.
Yeah, and so from there, I imagine. So you didn't have your own church at this point yet, but you were involved in your father's church?
Yep, I was involved in my dad's church, yep.
And so as, I guess, your relationships grow, obviously people find out more about you and your background.
Yep.
And I guess, how did the spiritual portion of your relationship with the Bucks team start developing?
Yeah, absolutely. So there was actually a guy that played for us named Malcolm Brogdon.
Yeah.
Still my boy to this day. I went to go cut Malcolm Brogdon's hair. He was I don't know how the conversation came up, but he asked, like, man, do you go to church? And I'm like, oh, yeah, you know.
You're like, way too much.
Yeah. I'm like, yeah. And at the time he asked me, I was just starting my church. And I was like, man, I'm actually a pastor. And he's like, no way. And he was like, you don't look like a pastor. And I'm like, but I am. He was like, I just don't believe it. So I had to like show him some footage to prove that I was.
Show me credentials.
Yeah, I'm like, I promise. Like, I really do have my own church.
Yeah.
And so he was like, man, good for you. And we went into a conversation. It was a very candid conversation. Like, man, to be honest with you, you know, I respect your faith, but I have a lot of issues with just Christianity and church, and there's a lot of stuff. And I'm like, hey, that stuff doesn't offend me. You know, I'm willing to talk and answer any questions. And he's like, you sure?
Right.
And I'm like, yeah. He's like, all right. I was like, dude, I won't get offended no matter what you say. And so he had a lot to say.
Right.
It took us about 2 hours to go through that conversation. By the end of the conversation, he was like, you know what? I'm actually willing to come to church. And so he came to church on Sunday. That was Friday. I cut his hair. He came to church that next Sunday. He goes to the locker room on Monday and he tells Giannis and Chris Middleton, like, dude, Kenny the barber is a pastor.
Barber? You know what else he does? Like that?
Like, yeah, and they're like, no way. You know, so I get a text message from Giannis and Chris, like, dude, you're a pastor? I'm like, yeah. And they said, why didn't you ever tell us? I said, nobody ever asked. Right? And
that was probably the right. I mean, it's probably hard. I mean, for you, like, just sharing that information.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure you could have totally done it. Because it's just
Absolutely.
small talk, but it's like on your end, you're probably thinking about, you know, I don't want to come off.
Yeah, I'm
the
not trying to
wrong way.
position myself to, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like one of the things that I do and work with all the NBA players I work with a lot of guys, Ben Simmons, Devin Booker, Bradley.
They're probably
Beal,
used to people coming at them for the wrong reasons.
positioning themselves to try to get close for something, right? And that's just not the way that I move. I value relationships over what I can get.
And you like cutting hair.
Yeah,
it's
honestly.
probably fun cutting. I mean, I used to have hair. I don't
Yeah,
anymore.
yeah,
But I
yeah,
managed like the fun of like when you finish a really good one.
Man,
you're like,
it feels good. You know,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? And so they text me, and then Giannis and Chris came to church. And so Giannis, Chris, and Malcolm, and Thon Maker at the time all ended up joining the church. And Giannis's mom actually joined first.
Yeah.
Because she's like strong in her faith. And so once they joined the church, the team reached back out to me. And was saying,
It's so great that his mom loves Milwaukee so much because it really helped out with,
Yeah,
keeping
yeah,
Giannis.
yeah,
I feel like
yeah.
I believe this is like the first city that they ever even visited
It
in the
is,
US, right?
It is. So when I talked to him about it, even that, he said, like, most people were asking, like, man, why would you choose Milwaukee? Why not LA? Why not? So they're comparing city to city. And he told me, he said, Ken, he's like, most people are looking at team to team. They're comparing city to city. I'm comparing country to country.
Yeah.
So
And his
comparing
upbringing, he went through a
it's
lot.
Greece to America. So it doesn't matter where I go here.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
it's all just the U.S. to me.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, so it's like he goes back home to Greece all summer anyways. He never stays here. You know, so
Yeah.
this is just where he would be while he's working.
Right, and I think a lot of people in the NBA or maybe more, I think it's kind of the positioning has kind of gone back towards the idea of people or maybe players would like to just win on their own and gotten away from like building like the super team
yeah,
stuff.
yeah,
I mean, there's
yeah.
something to be said. You know, you want to get drafted. I mean, I guess it's easy for us as non-NBA players to talk about. Well, this is what I would do if I got drafted.
Yeah,
but I mean,
yeah.
Giannis' story. I mean, how he made it the NBA, just his upbringing, what he's able to accomplish. He's an inspiration,
Bro, he's so
and
inspiring.
we lucked out what he's done for the city. I mean, the money that has came in because of Giannis, because of the team. You know, he's, I guess, people and the people that complain about having to pay like money towards like the Bucks team, like think about like what he's done, like
Man.
what he's done for the city, and he's such a good role model and a positive
You're so
influence,
right.
good for the league.
Man, no, Kyle, you're right. I mean, we lucked out, and man, we're really blessed to have the superstar that we have because he doesn't have the prima donna superstar mentality.
It's the AAU types that have that, right? All the ones that grew up like being told that they were the man from like 10, 12 years old and then playing wherever they wanted to on the summer teams.
Yeah. Where Giannis came from poverty and deep struggle, so he was just so happy to be in the NBA, you know, and to make it.
Right.
And he works harder than anybody I've ever seen. Honest to God, like when I look at him, I'm amazed to still see him work so hard with all that he's accomplished.
Yeah. Well, for sure, and I know that even his teammates or some of them have said he's a interesting guy, very family oriented, and just all about just the game and his family.
Extremely family oriented, and all those guys are amazing. Drew Holiday is crazy.
Oh, he's awesome.
Oriented.
He's another.
You know what I'm saying?
Done, I mean the way that the Pelicans, he played for the Pelicans before, right?
Yeah.
And I know his wife had like a health scare and he had to step away from the team from a while. But the way that he's Drew, I know he has left his mark on every team that he's played for from like a community standpoint.
Best teammate. You know what I'm saying?
best
Literally,
teammate.
like he will always win best teammate because of what he does to the community. With him and Lauren started the JLH fund where they're helping minority business owners and people who wouldn't get funding from any bank.
Yeah.
They're stepping in and saying, "Hey, we believe in your dream and in your vision." And then what he does on the court,
He's like an animal. He can guard anybody.
oh my goodness, bro! Like he's so much stronger than what he looks.
Yeah.
And he's so much better than what people give him. Without Drew Holiday, there's no way we win that championship.
Absolutely. And so, so you became. When did like being offered the official job as team chaplain come about?
2019.
And
2019.
so
Yeah.
you're like with the team at every home game.
Yeah, every home game, absolutely.
So do you lead like a prayer session like before a game?
Yeah.
How does that work? Like what is your job entail?
Yeah. So my job is I am a team chaplain. You know what I'm saying? I'm also a personal advisor with these guys. And so on game
And
days.
you still cut hair too?
Yep. I do. I still cut hair, but at least for them.
Yeah.
So on game days, an hour before every game, we have a small Bible study for about 12 to 15 minutes. And then I ask the guys, if they're just going through anything, they need me to pray for them before every game. And then also we do a closing prayer after every game, win, lose, or draw. Doesn't matter if we win, doesn't matter if we lost.
Now, is this just
draw.
with the Bucks or do like people from other teams?
So yeah, so I'm technically, people don't know this, I'm technically an NBA chaplain, not a Bucks chaplain.
Okay.
Because I can serve any player from any team.
Right.
So I've had times with LeBron, with Damian Lillard, with CJ McCollum, Carmelo Anthony, Devin Booker.
Did they just
Tyson
approach
Chandler.
you because is it like word of mouth spread? People have heard.
So it's two things. One of them is word of mouth when players have good relationships with you. So some of those guys have my personal numbers, like Andre Iguodala, Damian Lee, those guys. But then the other one is that also every team that has a team chaplain will have it posted somewhere near the locker room that, hey, there's a team chaplain here available.
Okay.
So if you want to talk, you can.
Does every team have one?
Actually, at one point in time, it was every team. Now it's every team but three because a couple of the chaplains either passed or the team is in transition.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, that's probably tough to fill.
It
Someone
is.
that's been like a long-term chaplain.
It
probably
is.
hard.
It is. I mean, I came in. There was a chaplain before me that was there for 25 years, and so I came in to have to rebuild a different kind of system because the system he had was still pretty archaic.
Yeah.
So he was a chaplain. In the early 90s.
Right.
And so it's
Are you
totally different.
Do you plan on holding on to your title as the youngest team chaplain in NBA history for the foreseeable future?
Yeah, I mean,
You scouting to being like, is there anyone coming up that might be?
Actually, it's funny. Akari is one of my younger buddies. He's actually younger than me now, but I told him I still make history because he came on older than what I was when I came on. So I'm still technically the youngest in history,
For sure.
even though he's younger than me now. Yeah.
That's awesome. And then and if you're just joining us, we're talking to Pastor Ken Locke, leader of the Evolved Church. They're about to break ground on a new facility, or they already have, but it's about to open. Where's the new facility going to be located?
6550 North 76th Street, so that's on 76 and Mill Road.
Awesome. And he is the Milwaukee Bucks team barber and the youngest team chaplain in NBA history.
Let's go.
So how important is good music in a church? Because for me, the place has to be bumping.
Oh, bro, what? Good music.
Good music is just important in life. Period.
It's important in life, but it's like monumental for our generation, though.
Oh, for sure.
It's monumental.
And when I visited your church, I mean, just the energy. Dude. I think that's the thing. That the way to attract a younger generation is just. Church has to be exciting.
Yeah,
fun to be a part of. High energy.
Why shouldn't it though? This is what I tell our church.
It shouldn't feel like a chore to go.
Yeah, right. Like I mean, if I can go to a Packers game and lose my mind, I can go to a Bucks game and scream. And these are people that we say have done absolutely nothing for us. We're just fans of them.
Right.
And so if you're saying like this is here for God, which is a huge part of my life, why do I have to downplay my excitement? I don't have to downplay it. I can be just as excited at a Packers or Bucks game or a Brewers game.
Right. How long does it take you to write your sermon every week?
Probably.
Like when do you start? After Sunday's done, like when do you start
Monday.
the next one? Yeah.
Literally, I start Monday, and not actual writing, but I start jotting down notes, themes, thoughts.
And how does the process? Is it just like things you witness, things that pop into your head?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I usually try to start off every Monday with just like a prayer. As far as I think of it this way, only God knows who's coming into the building. Like you said, you visited. There's no way I would have known that Cal was going to visit that day, right? So I never knew who was going to be there. I'm always praying, that I would have a message that would speak to them directly where they are, because I think a big part of messaging in church has to be applicable. Like if a person can't see how it applies to them,
right,
then it just doesn't mean anything to them. And that's just the reality of humanity. If you can't see yourself in the message, then you miss it.
Yeah, absolutely. So like the process of coming up with like what to speak on, I mean, are you kind of looking through the news and trying to figure out like what's relevant to talk about?
I don't have to look through the news. As long as you got social media, you'll know what's relevant.
Yeah. The news finds you. Yeah.
So social media usually keeps me on my heels, and then I got such a huge family, and I'm so engaged in the community because we built our church as a community center, not as a church. So we're so engaged in the community where I'm pretty in tune with what's happening in day-to-day processes.
For sure. And so like I feel like writing a good sermon, it's got to be like writing a good song. Like, do you know immediately if you've written a banger, so to speak?
Yeah.
Like, are you like reading it back? You're like, this is gonna go quite well on Sunday.
No, you start getting you ever see a singer writing a song and they get excited in the studio?
Yeah, they're
it's
like,
the same thing writing a sermon.
It's like Eminem and 8 Mile when he's jotting. He's like, oh yeah,
palms are sweaty.
Yeah. It's got to be like that, right? Because you're writing like the song of the week for somebody.
It is, no, absolutely, and I take it super important. This is why I take it so. Most people don't take it as serious as I do, but I take it extremely serious.
I think the sermon's the best part.
It is.
That's what I'm most interested in when I go to church. I want to hear like the daily message.
No, seriously, I think it's a huge honor when somebody takes 30 minutes out of their week to come sit and listen to you. That's a huge responsibility. I don't ever take it for granted. So I'm usually pretty serious around it. Yeah.
And I remember when I visited the one you did. So I don't know if you recall this story. So it's about the two brothers. One of the brothers goes away for a long time, parties, gets wild, and the other brother stays with the family and works hard every day. And he's mad when the other brother comes back and he's getting celebrated, and he's like mad because he'd been there the whole time working his ass off.
Yeah.
So what was that? Can you? That story.
That's the story of the prodigal son. Where the guy he's rich, he's wealthy, he promises to leave an inheritance to both of his sons. So the younger brother, he's like, dude, I want my inheritance now. I want to go live on it. I don't want to wait till you die.
Right.
I need my money now. So he gets his half of the money inheritance, and he's rich, right? And he lives it. Like
he goes wild. Yeah.
He's buying prostitutes.
Yeah.
He's in our world. He'll be out in Vegas.
Right.
He's in Miami.
He's balling.
He's like, you know what I mean? He's living like, as any young guy with a lot of money that just came into a lot of money would do. And the older brother is still he has the inheritance, but he doesn't go squander. He stays there and he serves his dad.
Right.
And he's faithful and he's serving. And then the younger brother comes back and he realizes he spends all his money, and the Bible says at that time that a famine came in, a pandemic happened, right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Sounds familiar. History repeats itself, right?
A pandemic happens, and dude he's run out of money. At this time, there's no government to give you a PPP loan or a check.
Right.
So he runs out of money. He's like, yo, I got to go back home to my dad, and I got to go back and apologize, but I'm embarrassed because I took this inheritance and I lived in a way that I know my dad wouldn't be happy with.
Right.
And he goes back and he's shamed, but he finds his dad, instead of being ashamed of him, his dad is happy to see him. And he goes and he hugs him, and he like kills the fatted calf, which means he throws a party, preps a dinner, tells the chef, my son is home.
When the other brother's outside the whole time, like,
and
mad.
He's still working. Yeah. And he's like, he comes back while they're celebrating. He's like, what's the party for? And they're like, yo, your brother's back, and your dad stopped everybody to celebrate him. And at this time, he's crushed because he's like, my dad never threw me a party. And I've been consistent, and I've been, you know what I mean? Like, I've been faithful, and why would he do all of this? And the dad had to go and encourage him, like, hey, your brother was lost, he was gone, and as a dad, I should always celebrate that my son is back home.
Right.
But he also tells him, like, everything that I have is yours.
Yeah.
So you don't have to ask me for a party.
Yeah.
Like you can, you know what I mean?
No, it's a good message. Yeah.
You know, it is your party. Even
there was never a need for a welcome back party because you never left. Exactly. Every day is the party.
Exactly. So for me, I imagine life that way, man. I imagine in our church every day is that it's people who've always been here, and it's a welcome back party for somebody every day.
Yeah. Is it hard taking in other people's sadness and sorrow?
Oh man,
because I think the word is like empath.
Yeah,
where
you're
like
empath,
you absorb people's feelings. And I think on a personal level, for me, like I get really engaged, like hearing people's stories, and I can definitely, it hurts to hear bad stories. So like for you, I mean, you have to deal with that probably every day. Like how do you not let that affect your personal life with your kids?
Oh man, yeah.
And like taking in other people's sadness, it's hard because there's only so much room. You got to handle your own stuff too.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard the worst of stories, and man, and one of my main practices that I do is at the end of every day, I actually pray, and I make sure I take that stuff off of me, because I'm an empath as well. So if a woman comes for counseling because she was just abused, I take that in. For I counseled a guy who had to turn himself in for a crime he did 10 years ago, and he was afraid and ashamed. And I'm like, I take in that fear. Or a person who just got evicted and lost everything, and they have a child. I take in that frustration, that pain, that tear. It's natural. Any person that operates by love and genuine care for others, if you're a human that cares for other humans, just in basic reality in life, you're going to start picking up what it is they're feeling, because we share one another's burdens. Yeah. So I have to remind myself every day that even though I share their burden with them, it is not my responsibility to carry it. Yeah. Only God can help them.
Right. And what would you, and this is like the age-old cliche question, like why do good things happen to bad people? Why does stuff happen to people that don't deserve it, whatever deserving it means? But there's always those philosophical questions.
Absolutely,
people that struggle with faith and wondering, like, what did I do?
No, absolutely.
To deserve? So I guess, how do you deal with those conversations?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's always the question of, why do like the bad people get away? So why do good things happen to bad people, and why do bad things happen to good people? And there's quite a few ways to look at it. One of it, the Bible says that, like, God reigns on the just as well as the unjust, or God is good to all of us, right? And if God was to pick when he was going to be good or bad based on what we're doing, that means that you and I would have a lot of days that he owes us back pay for the times that we didn't do everything perfect. So it's not necessarily, why the good things happen, bad things happen. The reality is, and the Bible says, is life, time, and chance happens to everybody. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, because you are a good person, that doesn't mean that. I mean, I'm a pastor going through a divorce, right?
I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, but it doesn't. Unfortunately, like, I don't get like a get out of jail free card. Like, I got to go through the same relationship stuff that other people go through. Yeah. It's like, well, you believe in God, but it doesn't mean that, like, your humanity stops.
So my parents divorced. How old are your kids?
My son is 10. My daughter's 5.
All right. So I was 6 and my brother was 12. And
wow.
It was tough when it happened. I guess, how are you dealing? How's that going?
Yeah, man. I mean, I'm super, super adamant about mental health and spiritual health. So, I mean, when it comes to therapists for myself, for the kids, and then also being very spiritually aware just of where we are. It's been super important to listen and not to always tell them how to feel. Right. Parents kind of miss the mark with that, is that when we talk to kids, we think that we need to always suggest how they should feel, when you shouldn't suggest first ever. The first responsibility is to listen, and for the child to feel that I can be safe with being vulnerable and know that my parent will not see me any differently.
Yeah. There's no line you can follow, like, on how you're supposed to feel about things. Everybody processes differently.
Literally, right? Literally.
There's no track. Yeah, there's no track to follow on it.
It's like my daughter's, she's happy, she's totally fine. It doesn't even matter. I mean, she literally saw it as a celebration. I know that sounds crazy because it blew me away, but she's like, so I get 2 Christmases? I get 2 birthday parties?
Yeah, that was probably the plus when I was growing up, because I got 2 Christmases. Like, it was fun. That was a positive.
She's been wanting 2 birthdays since she can remember. So her birthday's coming up too, so she's ecstatic about it. Yeah. My son was much, much different. He's 10 years old. He's an empath. He's like me. He absorbs. I mean, he came in one day. If he sees you looking sad, he's going to say, "Hey, are you okay?" Right. Because you being sad alerts him and alarms him. So I've had to be much more intentional in my conversation with him, just as much like, "Hey man, your dad, your mom loves you so much. We could anything you need, talk to me. Anything you feel, talk."
As long as the kids have the support system, that's all what it is. I mean, I harbored a lot of resentment towards my dad as I grew up, because he kind of left the family. Well, my mom left my dad because he wasn't going to leave himself and he wasn't behaving. Yep, correctly.
I know. I know how that goes. I know how that goes.
For sure, but
I mean, and unfortunately, that happens. The reality is, sometimes you get married to somebody before you can actually know who they are.
Yeah, my parents got married at like 19 and 21, which is crazy to me.
Same. That's how I ended. That's how I ended up. I mean, I was 20, she was 19 when we got married.
Yeah, and it's crazy. I can't imagine it, I think.
I mean, we probably shouldn't have, but once again, I was raised in a very religious church, and it's kind of like, it's better. This phrase is better to marry than to burn. That was literally the phrase. And it means that, they don't want you to have sex without being married. And so they were like, "You guys are young." We were 18 at this time. Y'all need to get married. And so I just proposed with no ring, because obviously I was in college and too poor to have a ring. Right. So I proposed without a ring, and we got married while we were still in college.
That's crazy. And then again, if you're just joining us, we're talking to Ken Locke. He is the pastor of the Evolved Church here in Milwaukee, team chaplain for the Milwaukee Bucks, team barber. What would you say, what sin do you struggle with the most? For me, I would say it's pride and gluttony. I can be very stubborn at times, and I don't always like admitting when I'm wrong. And I know gluttony is overindulgence. Yeah. It can mean just about anything. And over the years, I've definitely had too much fun and burned relationships due to my behavior. And,
yeah. No, for me, I wouldn't say I'm pretty strict when it comes to gluttony as far as a diet, a physical, natural diet. So I'm a vegan, so I try to eat.
Yeah, and I saw that you were a vegan.
Yeah,
I just meant I've been engaged in the partying a little too much.
Yeah,
and it has an effect.
I did that in college. My first year in college, I did not behave as a Christian in any shape, form, or fashion. But I eventually got over it. Now I would definitely say. I just talked about this on Sunday as well, where I feel like I do tolerate stuff much longer than what I should. And what I mean by tolerate is not like just tolerate like patience with people. That's patience. That's something different. But almost like a negative tolerance around like, hey, I really should cut this off sooner, but I don't.
Right.
I know this person isn't.
Is that a sin? Which sin is that?
I think it's a sin against yourself.
That's a good point. Good answer.
I think it's a sin against yourself. I mean, you can know that there are friends that aren't good for you, but you love them.
Right.
And
absolutely.
And you absolutely know
and
that.
Sometimes I've been the bad friend, unfortunately, and I've realized that. But
you
live your life eventually. Coulda, woulda, shoulda.
Yeah, absolutely.
You kind of learn the lesson. If life's a teacher, sometimes you learn the lesson after it's already happened.
It is. It's that hindsight is 2020 thing.
Hindsight's
sometimes.
2020.
You know what I mean? Sometimes when you look back, you get a chance to say, "Oh, I should have cut that friendship a long time ago," or maybe that's something I should have never done. I should never engage in this, or maybe I should have never opened this door. I mean, it's all it's for you to mature and to look back and to realize the things that your lower self or more immature self had done wrong. That's a sign of true maturity. If you look back and you can't point out anything that you should have done better, that means you're still the same person.
Right. Yeah, or you're in denial.
Yeah, for sure.
For me, I've realized, like, as I said, feeling like an empath or absorbing other people's feelings, or just really being recognizing how I feel. But you really start understanding yourself when you be like, man, spending time with these people, I like leave the situation feeling like worse. Like these people are having a negative effect on my well-being.
They are.
Obviously, they're not good for you.
They are, and the Bible says it very explicitly, like that staying in communication with negative people actually can deter you or damage you, your character, your personality, your energy.
It's like the crabs in the bucket where they all try and hold each other down.
Literally, man. I say this all the time. That's the perfect analogy. When you think the crabs in the bucket, anytime they see one person getting out, we will hold on to that crab because nobody wants to be in the bucket. Right. And the reality of it is, you understand why. It's because crabs were never meant to be in a bucket.
Yeah,
the reason they're acting the way they are is because they were never meant to be. And I realized that sometimes the most damage comes from relationships we were never supposed to be in.
Yeah. Absolutely. And this might be a tougher question.
That's cool. Let's do it.
So during the summer of 2020, the country was in turmoil due to what happened with George Floyd. You helped lead some social justice marches in the city, and you were maced.
Yes.
So I'm sorry that happened to you.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about? I'm just curious as to what happened. How did that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, number one, I start off by saying, like, I'm not one of those people who are just like, I'm not either or. I believe like you can be both and. I have family who are officers. I just had dinner with Chief Norman 2 weeks ago.
It was just a bad situation all around that could have been handled differently.
And that's all it was.
That's all it was.
It was a bad situation, and I told people like that was my first time getting a chance to experience that. Regardless of who I know, I know I am friends with the mayor. As a matter of fact, I took a picture with the mayor the day before I got maced, which is the funniest story. the mayor at that time
could have had 2 side-by-side pictures. Like,
literally. So it didn't matter me being friends with the lawyer, being friends with the chief of police. None of that. That in that moment, the officer only saw me as a violent protester. Even though we weren't being violent, we were talking, we were peaceful.
Yeah, and everything that was happening in Milwaukee, they were legitimately peaceful protests.
You know what I mean? Yeah. But it didn't matter to them.
I think there was maybe one Walgreens that got some stuff thrown at it, but as far as like in comparison to other cities, like everything in Milwaukee,
destroying places. Other cities were bad. You know what I mean?
Yeah, super bad.
Yeah, Philly, Cleveland. Yeah, so
I thought Milwaukee. I mean, I lived on the east side at the time. I mean, there were a lot of marches. I mean, the cops, from what I saw, the police were mindful, respectful.
For the most part.
You know, so I don't know what happened in your situation.
Yeah, I mean, it was. We were actually on the corner of McKinley and 6th Street. We're like McKinley and Fond du Lac, all that kind of stuff. The huge intersection, and we saw the police were there. And the thing that whenever we did protests, I've always instructed the protesters, whenever you see police, turn away. Just move in honor, right?
Yeah.
They're going to have to do their job.
Yeah, don't yell at them.
Yeah,
don't
like
engage.
Yeah, like it's pointless. It doesn't do anything. What does that do? You yelling at a cop right now doesn't change any laws, policies, or procedures.
No.
It's literally a waste of energy and time. So we were just turning. We saw obviously we were turning. As we were turning, I think somebody something happened behind the officers that we could not see.
Right.
And I don't know what that was, to be honest. But all we know is that the entire front row, the people that were protesting, they just came and maced everybody in an effort to disperse the crowd.
Yeah.
But I just think you could disperse the crowd in better ways. So.
Yeah. Well, that's a bummer.
Yeah.
Did it hurt?
Absolutely. I mean, they were pouring so much water stuff in my eyes and it wouldn't stop. And somebody said he had to pour milk in my eyes to stop the burning, and I was like,
yeah, that's a good way if you ever eat something spicy. Milk
yeah, and I was like, guys, I'm vegan, and they were laughing like nobody. I was like, nobody cares. Your eyes are on fire. Yeah. You need milk in your eyes, and I'm like, I don't. Did anybody have almond milk? Oh, is there any oat milk here?
I would have just been drinking the almond milk. Do you feel was the crowd you were marching with at the time, was it predominantly black people?
No, actually, the one thing about Milwaukee that amazed me is that I don't think I was in one protest ever that was predominantly black.
Yeah.
Most of the protests were actually predominantly white, which it shouldn't be shocking because the state is predominantly white. So it shouldn't be shocking. I mean, it is the percentage of numbers. But we had so many people of all ethnicities that were all here like, hey, we're here for fair equality. We're not here.
Which is fair.
You know what I'm saying? Like, and even in messaging, we realized there was so many times messages were twisted. You know what I mean? Because it almost seems to say, like, when people were saying Black Lives Matter, they were trying to say that nobody else's life mattered, which was it's the craziest message I ever heard. It was only used, and it's a manipulation tactic. It was only used when it came to these marches, because I've never been to breast cancer marches, and I've been to a few because my mom battled with it. I've never been to breast cancer marches, and somebody stands up and screams, "Ovarian cancer matters as well." No, prostate cancer is equally as important.
Cancer?
Like,
what about lung cancer?
Like we're not saying it isn't. What we're saying is today we're marching for breast cancer, right? And so it's like when we're marching for Black Lives Matter, there were so many friends, my white friends, that they were honest. They're like, dude, we know that this doesn't mean that nobody else's life matters. What we're saying is the issue at hand is that it appears as if Black lives haven't mattered to this point.
No, absolutely. It is silly. I mean, I think what really divides people, it's really just in wealth disparity, right? It's the haves versus the haves not.
Yes, sir.
And I think they want whoever calls the shots. I mean, if you can just keep everyone pitted against each other over trivial shit, whether it's race, whether it's
politics, because politics is still the have-nots.
Exactly. They're all going to the same party.
Literally.
They're all on Epstein's island, so to speak.
Come on, bro.
No, but it is sad, and I think maybe more and more people are waking up to just how trivial it all is. But
I think so.
I think a lot of people can relate as if you just talk to people, right? And like on a personal level, you can find common ground.
Come on, Kyle. Yeah. I am a person that loves people. I love humans. Like I feel like
I love hearing stories. Like as a job, what I do, I'm a recruiter, so my job is to find people for clients that we work with. So I've been interviewing people since day one. I went to school for broadcast journalism, so no, I'm very interested in other people's story, and I feel like I connect with people. But it is disappointing, the divisiveness, and I don't know how you feel, if you think things are getting better, but I mean, obviously summer of 2020,
so obviously better since then.
Better since then.
I think the country is cyclical, and the reason I say history repeats itself, to me it was I think the moment I realized it was cyclical was coming home from a protest, and they were playing on TV, I think the History Channel, some stuff from the Dr. Martin Luther King marches, and I realized that we were making the same requests.
Right.
And I was like, that's tough, because that's a 60-year difference. Yeah. Right. And it's like, it's still people peacefully marching to the street saying, hey, equality, hey, police treatment, these things need to be discussed. Yeah. Right. And like, if there isn't a policy in place to help mitigate it, to help control it, essentially, nothing is holding officers, and not all officers, because I know a lot of amazing officers, but holding the officers who decide to do things in their own way, holding them accountable.
Yeah, it is said a few bad apples can ruin a whole bunch.
Oh,
that's another thing with the police. It's
same with pastors. Yeah. It's a few bad apples. Yeah, I mean, I know people who like they won't even step foot in church because they're like, I've had bad experience with churches, and it wasn't until they met me in other spaces, like, oh man, I'll come to your church. Yeah, and I get it because
they're like, wait, you're a pastor?
Literally, I don't even tell people I'm a pastor when I'm traveling, because the moment they hear pastor, they treat you different. Right. So people are like, man, what do you do? I'm like, dude, I lead a nonprofit organization that helps people live better lives.
Yeah, exactly. That's what you do. So a couple more questions to wrap up here. So you got to appear on Steve Harvey's daytime talk show.
Yeah.
So when was that?
That was last year already, man. That went fast. That was
Yeah.
last year, yeah.
You guys both look good on the show. I thought you looked better than he
I
did.
try,
He
know.
had his suit, maybe because it was daytime TV. It was a little less extravagant than usual.
Yeah.
Do you remember, and this is just an odd question, he looks like to me that he would smell like really expensive cologne, like really good. Do you remember? Does he just
No,
wash
I don't remember. The lights were too bright. That's all
Yeah.
I remember is looking around and seeing all these lights shining on me. But no, he was actually really cool. I mean, we met off camera, and
Yeah.
the first thing he did was crack a joke. He like, he's like, I love the Milwaukee Bucks, man. You guys won me a bunch of money when I bet. You
That's
know
what
the
Steve
Bucks.
Harvey needs is more money. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to say the number he told me, but he was like, "Yeah, I bet on the Bucks, and I made a lot of money." And we laughed a lot. And he was like, "You're a compilation of my 3 favorite things. Like, I love my haircuts, I love basketball, and I love God." So
He loves his haircuts. Well, he used to have hair.
he used to do. He
Yeah.
used to.
How what's your favorite thing about Milwaukee?
Oh man, my favorite thing about Milwaukee is the people.
People?
Believe it or not, Milwaukee. I travel the world a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, just this year I've been out of the country maybe 3 times already. Milwaukee has its own unique. I'm not saying that's all good people. I'm not gonna say that, but we just have our own tone and tenor and cadence and rhythm that you don't feel it anywhere else. You know, I mean, like we're straightforward but also kind.
Yeah.
We're nice but also rude. You know, it's like
it's a good mix. It's a good
it
melting
really
pot.
is. It's like it's like you get a chance to grow and develop in all spectrums of life if you stay in Milwaukee.
Right. Do you ever have days? I mean, everyone wakes up some days and they don't want to go to work. Do you ever experience that on Sundays? You're like, man.
Oh man, you know what? It's probably only happened one time where I woke up and I didn't want to go to work on a Sunday, and that's at the time where
Are you allowed to like call in sick?
Yeah, I know, right?
You can do that?
Yeah, no, you can't. It's a really, really, really bad practice.
It's not a good look.
But yeah, it's not a good look. And it shows instability, and maybe people like maybe I shouldn't be here.
Yeah.
But I think it was the time when we first were going through the divorce, and like.
Oh, that probably was really hard to go and be in front of a crowd. And
oh man, it's like you got to stand up and encourage people.
And people probably hear about it through the grapevine.
Exactly. And you have to pretend like none of you guys see this elephant on the stage with you, because everybody knows what's happening, and it's like.
Yeah.
And you try to like encourage around it, and like people start asking like very probing questions. They're like, how's your wife? You're like, oh,
you're gonna make me answer this right
she's
now?
not here.
Yeah.
She's away, unwell. So but having to encourage others while going through it. In the early stages, now it's fine. But in those early stages, maybe for 2 Sundays in a row, I remember like praying for 10 minutes straight, like, God, just give me courage, give me strength, give me the ability to make sure that I don't use this public stage as a platform to share my emotions of what I'm going through.
Yeah, it's got to be hard.
You let me encourage people. Yeah. So I definitely had 2 Sundays where I woke up and I'm like, But what encouraged me was walking into the church and having somebody say, hey, I brought a special guest with me, man. This person's been waiting so long to come to church today.
Right.
I hope the message encourages us. Right. And it's like,
and you're like, this is why I do it.
I have to, you know what I mean? It's like, I have to keep going. Like, no matter what I'm going through, I have to make sure that my life is still adding life and value to others.
Absolutely. Well, as we wrap up, I have one more request for you, and this is actually from my co-host, Chris, who can't be this. So he's making a big life transition. He's moving out to L.A.
That's huge.
He needs a change of scenery. He's on a road trip right now. So he asked if you could provide prayers for his drive and his new chapter of life.
Yes.
So let's close it out with give me what you got.
Come on, give me his name.
His name's Christian.
Come on, we can pray right now.
Okay.
Come on, let's do it, man. God, I just thank you for my time with my friend Cal. He's my new friend, but I appreciate him already. We just pray for just amazing blessings on his show. I pray that so many ears would hear and be drawn to the guests he brings and just the life, the fun, the energy he provides. I think we all need more of it. We pray for Christian as he's traveling on his road trip. I heard he was stopping but through a few different places, even Amarillo. I pray that he would have fun, try good food everywhere that he goes, and that he would be safe in his journey. I pray that LA would fulfill his wildest dreams,
and
expectations.
He stays out of trouble in LA too.
And that he stays out of trouble, please.
Yeah,
guys, because there's a lot of trouble out there in a lot of different pockets. So we thank you for your son's name. We pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much, Pastor Ken Locke. Thank you so much for joining us today. This was great, man.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate you, brother.
For sure.